Welcome back. This is step 3. Here's where we're going to go into the details and we're going to write the rest of your proposal. Okay, here's the table of contents that you're familiar with. We have written part 1, the overview, and now we're into the specifics. Here come the details. Here's where you get to show that you've really figured out what you're going to do with the money. You're going to talk about exactly what you plan to do. So the first thing is what we've called methodology. Here is the what of your project. I'm not going to read every word here. You can see it all on the blog with the complete sample proposal, but this is just to give you an idea. In this particular project, our village training program, there are going to be 4 phases. We're going to talk here about phase 1, which is the preparation, where the coordinator and the masters visit the villages, get prepared. Phase 2 is the actual training for 4 weeks. Phase 3 is the next couple of weeks with supervision. And phase 4 is selling the work. Those are the phases of the project. That's what you're going to do. Now the question is, when are you going to do this? So here's the timeline. In this case, the program is going to go from March through April. Your project might be very short. Maybe some people are going to make a research presentation at a conference. That's a short project. Maybe you have a large building program, which is going to take several years. It all depends on the length of your program, how much detail you're going to provide. In this case, we've given the period of time, and now we have a simple chart that's going to show what's going to happen in each of the phases, and if you look on the second row there, what's going to happen in each week of the project. So this is the timeline for this particular project. That is the when. Now we have to talk about who is going to do this. Here's the staffing. What's important here is that we not only say who's going to do it, we have a coordinator and we have the master basket weavers. The point of the chart here is to show how much time each person is going to spend on the project. The reason this is here is that a lot of times when funders look at your proposal, they see that you have all these people who are working on it, but maybe they have other responsibilities in your organization. Just how much time are they going to be putting into this project? You want to show that you've thought about that, so there is enough staffing and enough staff time to do a great job on the project. That's the who. Now, what about the budget? Here we go. It's a good idea to put your budget into some kind of a chart unless it's a very, very simple one-line budget, let's say. But in this case, and in lots of cases that I've seen, it really helps to have a budget that breaks down what you want to spend on what. So if you look here, the first section is what the training materials are going to cost. The second section is what do we have to pay for the staff, and the third is some operational costs because we're going to sell these baskets through our shop and we want some of the funding to help support the shop and the online web site where also people will be able to sell their baskets. You'll notice that we haven't put all the dollars in here. The full budget again is in the complete proposal on the blog, but this gives you an idea of how you can break down the budget. Let me add one other point. If you have a partner who is going to give some of the funding, and what you're asking for here is only partial funding, this budget is a good place to say we need, let's just say, $5,000. We're getting $2,000 from this source to cover these costs, and we want $3,000 from you, the funding source, to cover these costs. Funders love it when they're not the only ones supporting the project. So if it happens that in your project you're getting some money from one source and some money that you're requesting in this proposal, make it clear that you only need some of the funding through this particular proposal. Now, the last couple parts of this section are where you talk about, are you going to need any more funding later on? The funder wants to know, is this an ongoing kind of activity where maybe in the future you're going to need additional money? And if so, where are you going to get it? In our case here, this is a simple project. It's a one-time project. So we say here, this is a self-contained project. It will be completed in 2017 and no further funding will be needed. Okay, you've made that clear. The last part is about reporting. You want to let the funding source know how you're doing. So you offer to provide them with progress reports, especially if it's a long project. If it's a short project, it's probably not necessary. But if you have a 3-year building program, you certainly are going to want to submit reports along the way. But for sure, no matter how long or short your project is, you offer to provide a final report so they can see how well you succeeded, what the outcomes were, and this is a great place to put pictures of what you did. We are now almost at the end of our table of contents. We're here at the conclusion. So let me show a sample conclusion. Here we go. For this particular program, it is, let me just count it up, it's 3 sentences. It's short, but you want it to be very persuasive, and you talk about who you are and why you're going to be successful. You have long roots in Cambodia. You have done successful programs already. Here's what's going to be great about this particular program. It's going to help the villagers augment their incomes. It's going to help them learn a new skill, use their creativity, and it's going to preserve the great tradition of basket crafts. Remember, you said up front, this tradition was dying, so here's your solution. You're going to preserve this great tradition. Now, maybe there are some extras that you want to add. This is where you can provide even more detail. Let's talk first about how long your proposal should be. If it's a short, not very complex project, 1 or 2 pages may be all you need. Generally speaking, I would say somewhere between 8 and 10 pages is pretty good for the main part of your proposal. But maybe there are other things you need to include. Put them at the end in the appendix. So let me give you some examples. Maybe a more detailed budget. Maybe there are some recommendations from experts that will say, oh, this project is really an important one. Maybe there are biographies of project team members. You can add photographs, illustrations, maps, architectural plans. If you've done similar projects in the past, maybe there are reports or there is feedback that you got about the success of your prior projects. This is where you put all that additional information. If anyone is interested, they can read it there. Finally, I want you to go back and I want you to revisit that project summary that you wrote up front. Remember, I told you don't worry too much about the details, because by this time, if you're like most people, you have thought out your project in greater detail than ever before, and maybe there are some things that have changed since you wrote up your project summary. So this is your chance to go back and make sure that what you say about what you're going to do matches up with what you say all the way through the proposal. Okay, we have now seen what goes where, and you have a pretty good first draft of your proposal, when you come back for our next step, I'm going to give you a quick checklist to make sure you didn't leave anything out.